The knife pressed deeper into Marcus's throat. Blood trickled down his neck as Dante Salazar leaned in close, his breath reeking of tequila and violence. "You think you're a hero, street rat?" Salazar laughed. "You're nothing. Just another piece of garbage I'm about to throw away." Behind him, 3 gang members held a screaming 10-year-old girl. Emma's terrified eyes locked onto Marcus, this skinny homeless boy who'd thrown himself between her and monsters. Marcus gripped his broken wooden staff, his only weapon, his only friend. In the distance, the thunder of Harley engines grew louder. Salazar had no idea whose daughter he'd just tried to take. If you want to see how this homeless boy becomes a legend, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. 12 hours earlier, Marcus swung his oak staff through the empty air behind Chen's Chinese restaurant. The wood made a satisfying whoosh as it cut through the morning fog. Once, twice, a diagonal slash that would have taken a man's legs out if anyone had been standing there. At 16, Marcus had learned that survival wasn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It was about being the most willing to do whatever it took. The staff was smooth under his calloused palms. He'd found it in a construction dumpster 6 months ago, just a piece of discarded oak. But he'd spent weeks sanding it down, shaping it, wrapping the handle with strips of old t-shirt to prevent slippage. Everything he knew about fighting came from YouTube videos watched on library computers and hard lessons learned in back alleys. "You're gonna break something, man." Marcus spun, staff raised. Tommy stood at the alley entrance. 12 years old, dirty clothes, eyes too old for his face. Another throwaway kid the world had forgotten. "Mind your business, Tommy." "Just saying." Tommy kicked at a pebble. "Chen's nephew got jumped last week. 3 guys took everything he had. You should get a real weapon, a knife or something." Marcus looked at his staff. "This is real enough." "A stick against knives? That's crazy." "A knife means getting close, means you gotta be willing to see someone's blood on your hands." Marcus resumed his practice. "I'm not ready to cross that line." "Whatever, man." Tommy shuffled his feet. "You coming to the shelter tonight? They're serving meatloaf." "Maybe." That meant no. The shelters were dangerous in their own way. Too many people crammed together, too many predators hunting easy marks. Marcus preferred doorways, park benches, the occasional unlocked car. Alone was safer. Tommy left, and Marcus went back to his routine. 50 strikes, 50 blocks, 50 thrusts. His arms burned by the end shoulders screaming, but he didn't stop. Pain was just weakness leaving the body, or so he told himself. He'd started carrying the staff after what happened to Lily, his little sister, 8 years old. Bright smile that could light up a room. Used to make necklaces out of dandelions and put them around his neck like he was a king. They'd been in foster care together, the last placement before Marcus aged out at 15. Lily was still young enough to be adoptable, still innocent enough to believe in happy endings. But their foster father had other ideas. Marcus had seen the way Mr. Henderson looked at her, the way he found excuses to be alone with her, the way his hand lingered too long on her shoulder. Marcus reported it, called the hotline, begged the caseworker to investigate. "We'll look into it," she'd promised. "These things take time." A week later, Marcus came home from school to find Lily in the bathtub, empty pill bottle on the floor. 8 years old, and she'd decided the world was too much. Mr. Henderson told the authorities she'd been depressed. The system believed him. Case closed. Tragic accident. Nothing to see here. Marcus knew the truth. He ran that night. Couldn't stay in that house. couldn't be part of a system that had failed his sister so completely. And he swore on Lily's grave that if he ever saw another kid in danger, he wouldn't wait for adults to help. He wouldn't trust the system. He wouldn't fill out forms and wait for callbacks that never came. He'd handle it himself. The staff became his promise, his penance, his purpose. Marcus finished his routine and wiped sweat from his forehead. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Time to find somewhere to sleep. He slung the staff over his shoulder and headed toward Miller Park. There was a bench near the playground, far enough from the streetlights to avoid police attention, close enough to feel somewhat safe. He walked with purpose, head up, eyes scanning. Street kids who looked like victims got treated like victims. He'd learned to project a "don't mess with me" vibe, even though he was skinny as a rail and probably couldn't intimidate a third grader. The staff helped. People saw it, made assumptions. Crazy kid with a stick. Better to leave him alone. He was halfway to the park when he saw the girl. She was maybe 10 years old, pink backpack with unicorns on it. Clean clothes, new shoes, the kind of kid who had a home, a family, a normal life. She was walking with a man in a leather vest. Big guy muscles like a bouncer tattoos covering both arms. A bodyguard, Marcus realized. This wasn't some random kid walking home from school. This was someone important. They stopped at an ice cream truck. The girl bounced on her toes, while the bodyguard Marcus would later learn his name was Cruz, ordered 2 cones. Marcus should have kept walking. Should have minded his own business. But something made him pause. Maybe it was the way Cruz kept checking his phone, distracted. Maybe it was the black van parked across the street with its engine running and windows tinted. Maybe it was the way the driver hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Just sitting there. Watching. Marcus's instincts screamed. He'd seen this before. Different city, different circumstances, but the setup was the same. Predator waiting for the right moment. Distracted guardian. Vulnerable target. He crossed the street trying to look casual and sat on a bench about 30 feet from the ice cream truck. The staff lay across his lap. He pretended to mess with a broken iPhone he'd found in a trash can, screen cracked beyond repair, but it made him look occupied. The girl got her ice cream chocolate with sprinkles. She and Cruz started walking toward a black SUV parked at the curb. The van's door slid open. Everything happened fast. 3 men burst out like a coiled spring released. Ski masks, black fabric with crude holes for eyes. The first one had a taser. The second carried a pistol. The third held a cloth bag, the kind you'd use to cover someone's head. They moved with the precision of a practiced team. Cruz reached for his waistband, going for a gun, but the taser caught him in the chest. 50,000 volts dropped him like a puppet with cut strings. He hit the pavement hard, convulsing ice cream cones splattering across the sidewalk. The girl screamed. A high, piercing sound that cut through everything. People scattered. A woman dragged her toddler in the opposite direction. A businessman practically dove into his car. This was the kind of neighborhood where people knew better than to be witnesses. The third man grabbed the girl and started dragging her toward the van. She fought like a wildcat, kicking, biting, screaming. But she was 10 years old and he was full-grown. Might as well have been fighting a grizzly bear. Marcus stood up. Every survival instinct he had told him to run. This wasn't his problem. These were clearly professionals, organized crime probably. Getting involved would be suicide. But he saw Lily's face superimposed over the girl's, saw his sister in that bathtub, saw the failure that haunted his dreams every single night. His hand tightened around the staff. Not again. Never again, Sunjatsuman. Marcus ran, not away, toward. The first man, the one with the taser, saw him coming and actually laughed. Look at this skinny little hero with a stick. Marcus didn't slow down. He raised the staff like a baseball bat and swung for the fences. The oak connected with the man's kneecap. The sound was like a branch, snapping a wet crack that Marcus felt reverberate up his arms. The laughter cut off, replaced by a scream. The man's leg buckled sideways at an angle legs weren't meant to bend. Marcus had never broken someone's leg before. It felt worse than he'd imagined. Better, too. The man with the gun swung toward him, but Marcus was already moving. He jabbed the staff forward like a spear, catching the gunman in the solar plexus. The man doubled over, gasping for air. 2 down. 1 to go. The third man had the girl halfway to the van. He saw what happened to his partners and drew a knife, a wicked-looking thing with a serrated edge. "Back off, kid, or I'll gut you like a fish." Marcus kept coming. The man slashed. Marcus tried to block with the staff, but the blade bit into the wood, carving a deep groove. He twisted, trying to yank the knife away. The man held on. They grappled. Marcus was smaller, weaker, but he fought dirty. Stomped on the man's instep. Head-butted him in the nose, felt cartilage crunch. Bit down on the hand holding the knife. Tasted blood and dirt. The man screamed and released the girl. She scrambled away, running toward Cruz, who was starting to recover from the taser. The man's fist caught Marcus in the ribs. Once, twice, 3 times. Pain exploded through his torso. He couldn't breathe. His vision went white around the edges, but he didn't let go of the staff. He swung wildly, blindly, connected with something, the man's head maybe, and heard a dull thunk. The man staggered back. Marcus should have run then. Should have grabbed the girl and gotten the hell out. But the gunman was back up. Wheezing but functional. And he was raising his pistol. Marcus threw himself at the man, using the staff like a bar, shoving it crosswise against his throat. They went down in a tangle of limbs. The gun went off. The sound was deafening. Impossibly loud. Marcus's ears rang. He didn't know if he'd been shot. Everything hurt so much already that one more wound might not register. They rolled across the pavement. Gravel bit into Marcus's back. The man was on top of him now, pressing down with all his weight hands around Marcus's throat. Squeezing. Marcus's vision started to tunnel. Black spots danced across his eyes. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. His hands scrabbled at the ground. Found a shard of broken glass from a discarded beer bottle. He didn't hesitate. He drove it into the man's thigh. The grip on his throat loosened. Marcus sucked in a desperate breath and shoved the man off, grabbed his staff, his beautiful, reliable staff, and swung one more time. It connected with the side of the man's head. The man stopped moving. Marcus tried to stand. His legs wouldn't cooperate. He fell to his knees, gasping, bleeding from a dozen cuts he didn't remember getting. The van's engine revved. The driver who'd stayed in the vehicle the whole time was trying to escape. Marcus lurched to his feet and threw the staff like a javelin. It tumbled through the air and smashed through the windshield, spiderwebbing the glass. The van swerved, clipped a parked car, and kept going. Gone. But the girl was safe. Cruz had her now, was pulling her into the SUV, checking her for injuries, his face a mask of guilt and fury. Marcus stood there in the middle of the street, surrounded by groaning bodies and blood, most of it his. I did it, he thought. I actually did it. Then his legs gave out completely. The last thing he heard before the darkness took him was the sound of motorcycle engines. Dozens of them. Getting closer. Marcus woke in pieces. First sensation, something soft against his skin. Not concrete, not cardboard. An actual mattress. Sheets that smelled like laundry detergent instead of mildew. Then sound. Voices arguing in hushed tones, medical equipment beeping, the distant rumble of motorcycles. Finally sight. A ceiling. White, clean, with recessed lighting. He tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his torso like someone had driven a railroad spike through his ribs. "Whoa, whoa, easy there, warrior." A man appeared in his peripheral vision. Late 50s graying hair tied back in a ponytail, wearing blue scrubs splattered with dried blood. "You've got 17 stitches in your side, 12 in your left arm, 8 in your right, and a concussion that probably scrambled your brains pretty good." The man adjusted an IV bag hanging beside the bed. "Stay down." "Where?" Marcus's voice came out as a croak. "Where am I?" "Devil's Hounds Clubhouse. I'm Doc. Not a real doctor, but I've patched up enough bullet wounds to fake it." Doc studied him with professional interest. "You're lucky that stab wound missed everything important by about 2 inches. Any deeper, and you'd be having this conversation with St. Peter." Marcus tried to process this. Clubhouse. Motorcycle club. Devil's Hounds. The girl's fine. Traumatized but physically unharmed. Thanks to you." Doc sat on the edge of the bed. "You want to tell me what the hell you were thinking? Taking on 3 armed men with a stick. Couldn't let them take her. Most people would have called the cops. Cops are slow." Doc laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Fair point." The door opened. A man walked in, and suddenly the room felt smaller. He was maybe 45, with a gray-streaked beard and eyes like frozen steel. 6'3", probably 250, all muscle and scar tissue. He wore a leather vest covered in patches Devil's Hounds MC on the back, President on the front. Marcus had never seen anyone who radiated authority like this man did. "Doc, how's our guest?" "Stable. Stubborn, asking about his stick." The man's expression shifted into something that might have been respect. "Of course he is." He moved to the other side of the bed, his presence filling the room. "Marcus, right? That's what your ID said." Marcus nodded. He'd forgotten he even had an ID, a learner's permit he'd never upgraded because he'd run before he could take the test. "I'm Victor Reyes. People call me Stone. I'm the president of the Devil's Hounds Motorcycle Club National Chapter." Stone's voice was carefully controlled, but Marcus could hear emotion underneath. "The girl you saved, Emma, she's my daughter. My only child." Marcus didn't know what to say. "What you did today?" Stone shook his head slowly. "There aren't words for it. You put yourself between armed kidnappers and my baby girl. You fought them off with a goddamn stick. Do you understand how rare that is? How insane and brave and stupid? I just did what needed doing." "No. You did what nobody else would do." Stone reached into his vest and pulled out Marcus's staff. It was in 2 pieces snapped during the fight. But someone had repaired it. Bound the break with silver wire that caught the light, reinforced it with metal bands. The grip was rewrapped in new cloth, black and soft. And along the length, etched in careful script, were words, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important." Below that, the Devil's Hounds logo, a snarling hound's head wreathed in flames. "It broke during the fight," Stone said quietly. "But broken things can be made stronger. Our metalsmith reinforced it." He placed the staff in Marcus's trembling hands. "This isn't just a stick anymore, son. It's a symbol, evidence of what you did." Marcus ran his fingers over the silver binding. The new weight felt right. Balanced. Powerful. There's something else. Stone pointed to a small metal plate attached to the base. Engraved on it, property of Marcus, Devil's Hounds, MC. I'm not in your club. Not yet. Legal prospect age is 16. Stone met his eyes. But that doesn't matter. As of today, you're under Devil's Hounds protection. Anyone messes with you, they mess with us. Anyone threatens you, they threaten us. You saved my daughter, Marcus. That makes you family. Family? The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. He hadn't had family since Lily, hadn't dared to hope for it. I don't understand, Marcus whispered. You don't have to. Just accept it. Stone stood. Rest. Heal. When you're ready, we'll talk about your future. But know this, you'll never sleep on the street again. You'll never go hungry. You'll never be alone. That's my promise. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. And Marcus, thank you. For my daughter's life. I can never repay that debt. But I'll spend the rest of mine trying. After he left, Marcus lay there, holding his repaired staff, tears streaming down his face, for the first time since Lily died. 3 days later, Doc declared Marcus stable enough to be moved from the medical bay to a real room. The Devil's Hounds clubhouse was nothing like Marcus had imagined. He'd pictured a dingy bar with pool tables and neon beer signs. Instead, it was a fortress, a converted warehouse with reinforced walls, security cameras on every corner, and armed guards at the gate. His room was on the second floor, down a hallway, decorated with motorcycle memorabilia and photographs of past members. The room itself was simple, but clean. A bed, a dresser, a small desk, a window overlooking the parking lot where dozens of Harleys sat in neat rows. Someone, probably Stone, had left clothes for him. New jeans, t-shirts, a hoodie, actual socks and underwear. The first new clothes Marcus had owned in over a year. He was staring out the window when there was a knock at the door. Come in. The door opened slowly. Emma stood there looking tiny in the doorway. She carried a tray with a sandwich and a glass of milk. Her unicorn backpack hung from one shoulder, a little dirty from the incident, but intact. Hi, she said shyly. Daddy said I could bring you lunch, if you wanted, if that's okay. Marcus sat up carefully, mindful of his stitches. Yeah, that's okay. She set the tray on the desk and perched on the edge of the chair, hands folded in her lap. Up close, Marcus could see she had her father's steel gray eyes, though hers held a warmth Stone's lacked. I wanted to say thank you, Emma said in a rush, for saving me. The bad men were going to take me, and you stopped them, even though you got really hurt, and I was so scared. But then you were there, and— It's okay, Marcus interrupted gently. You don't have to thank me. But I do. Daddy says you're a hero. He says you're braver than most of his guys, and they're all really big and scary. Marcus picked up the sandwich, peanut butter and jelly cut into triangles. I'm not a hero. I did what anyone would do. No. Emma shook her head firmly. Most people ran away. I saw them. Everyone ran away except you. She wasn't wrong. Marcus bit into the sandwich to avoid responding. Daddy says you're going to live here now, Emma continued. Is that true? I don't know. Maybe for a while. I hope you do. She smiled a gap-toothed grin that made Marcus's chest ache. Then we can be friends. I don't have many friends. Daddy says it's not safe for me to go to regular school because of his work, so I have a tutor. It gets lonely sometimes. I know what lonely feels like. They sat in comfortable silence while Marcus ate. When he finished, Emma stood and picked up the tray. I have to do homework now, but can I visit you again tomorrow? Sure. Okay, bye, Marcus. Thank you again. After she left, Marcus laid back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The staff leaned against the wall beside him, silver bands catching the afternoon light. He ran his fingers over the engraved words. Courage is not the absence of fear. He'd been terrified during that fight, every second certain he was about to die. But he'd done it anyway. Maybe that was what courage meant. That night, Stone came to Marcus's room with a thick file folder. You need to see this. He dropped the folder on the bed. Inside were surveillance photos, printouts of text messages, financial records, and a photograph of a man with sharp features, cold eyes, and a snake tattoo coiling up his neck. His name is Dante Salazar, Stone said. Mid-30s, former cartel enforcer. Now he runs a drug distribution network called Los Diablos out of the industrial district. He's been trying to muscle in on our territory for months. Marcus studied the photograph. So this was the man who'd sent kidnappers after a 10-year-old girl. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know who tried to take Emma. And because... Stone leaned against the desk, arms crossed. The guys and I talked. We're going after the Diablos. In 3 days, we're going to hit them hard, destroy their operations, send a message. Good. Stone's eyebrows rose. Good. They tried to hurt a little girl. They should pay for that. They will. But I want you to understand what that means. We're not just going to rough them up. We're going to burn everything they have to the ground. It won't be clean. It won't be legal. It won't be pretty. Marcus met Stone's eyes. I don't care. They deserve it. Maybe. But there's a cost to that kind of violence. It changes you, makes you harder. Stone's voice softened. I don't want that for you. Not if I can help it. I'm already hard. Stone studied him for a long moment. Yeah, I guess you are. He gathered the folder and headed for the door. Get some sleep, Marcus. Tomorrow you start training. Hammer's going to teach you how to really use that staff. After Stone left, Marcus lay awake for hours. He thought about Lily, about Emma, about the monsters who preyed on children and the broken system that let them. He thought about the photograph of Dante Salazar, and he made a decision. He wasn't going to sit on the sidelines while the devil's hounds went to war. He was going to be there, one way or another. The next morning, Hammer found Marcus in the parking lot before sunrise. Stone says you need training. Hammer was a mountain of a man, shaved head beard down to his chest hands, like sledgehammers. Show me what you got. Marcus gripped his staff and fell into his stance, the one he'd taught himself from YouTube videos and street fights. Hammer watched for about 3 seconds. That's garbage. Excuse me. Your stance is wrong. You're telegraphing every move. A blind man could see your attacks coming. Hammer circled him slowly. You survived that fight on guts and luck. Luck runs out. Marcus felt his face flush. I took down 3 armed men. And almost died doing it. Hammer stopped in front of him. You want to survive the next fight? Forget everything you think you know. For the next 2 hours, Hammer broke Marcus down and rebuilt him from scratch. Proper footwork, weight distribution, how to generate power from rotation instead of just arm strength, how to flow from one technique to another without stopping. Filipino Kali, Hammer explained. Stick fighting. I learned it in the Philippines 20 years ago. Saved my life more times than I can count. By the time they finished, Marcus's arms were shaking and his stitches throbbed. But he understood he'd been fighting like an amateur. Hammer was showing him how to fight like a professional. Same time tomorrow, Hammer said. Don't be late. I won't. Hammer started to walk away, then turned back. Kid, what you did for Emma, that took guts. Stupid guts, but guts. Don't let anyone tell you different. It was the closest thing to a compliment Marcus had ever received. That afternoon, Tank found Marcus in the common area, practicing the techniques Hammer had taught him. You're holding it wrong. Marcus looked up. Tank had a scar running from his temple to his jaw, probably from a knife. His eyes were hard, but not unkind. Hammer said, "Hammer's old school. Here." Tank adjusted Marcus's grip. "Thumb along the shaft. Gives you more control." "Thanks." Tank watched him practice for a minute. "You know, when Stone told us what happened, nobody believed it. 3 armed men, a 15-year-old kid, a wooden stick." He shook his head. "Then we saw the security footage. There's footage. Ice cream truck had a camera, caught the whole thing." Tank's expression shifted. "I've been in this club 20 years, seen a lot of fighters, a lot of brave men." He paused. "I've never seen anything like what you did." Marcus didn't know what to say. "Most people freeze," Tank continued. "When violence happens, when someone's in danger, most people just freeze. Their brains can't process it. But you didn't freeze. You moved. You fought. You won." When he clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "That's not something you can teach. That's something you're born with." Over the next few days, Marcus fell into the rhythm of the clubhouse. Mornings were for training with Hammer. Afternoons meant helping around the clubhouse, cleaning bikes, organizing supplies, whatever needed doing. Evenings were for eating together in the big common room, listening to the men tell stories about rides and fights and the old days. They accepted him without question. Not as a full member, he was too young for that, but as something else. A mascot, maybe. A little brother. Someone worth protecting. Doc checked on him twice a day, changing bandages and monitoring his healing. "You heal fast," Doc observed on day 4, removing stitches from Marcus's arm. "Good genetics, though you're still too skinny. We need to put some meat on those bones." "I've been eating." "Not enough. You're 15. You should be growing like a weed." Doc handed him a protein bar. "Eat this and this." Another bar. "And this." A third. Marcus actually laughed for the first time in months. Emma visited every day. She'd bring him lunch, always peanut butter and jelly cut into triangles, and they'd talk. About everything. About nothing. She told him about her tutor, about the books she was reading, about the dog she wanted, but her dad wouldn't let her have. "He says it's too dangerous," Emma explained. "Because of his work. What if someone tried to hurt the dog to get to him?" "That makes sense." "I guess." She picked at her sandwich. "It's just lonely sometimes. The other kids at my old school before Daddy pulled me out, they didn't understand. Their dads had normal jobs, accountants and lawyers and stuff. My dad..." She trailed off. "Your dad protects people," Marcus said. "That's important." "Do you really think so?" "I know so." Emma smiled that gap-toothed grin that made Marcus's chest ache. "I'm glad you're here, Marcus. It's nice having someone to talk to, someone who isn't a grown-up." "I'm glad I'm here too." And he meant it. For the first time since Lily died, he felt like he belonged somewhere. On the 5th night, Stone called a meeting. Not church. Marcus wasn't allowed in church, but something else. Something unofficial. Marcus was lying in bed when he heard the knock. He opened the door to find Stone standing there with 8 men behind him, all of them wearing the Devil's Hound's cut. "Sorry to disturb you," Stone said, "but the guys wanted to meet the kid who took on 3 Diablos with a stick, formally." They filed into the small room, filling it with leather and tattoos, and barely contained violence. Stone gestured to each man in turn. "This is Hammer, you know him. Tank. Bones, our secretary. Reaper. Ghost. Diesel, Chains, Smoke, all full patch members. Each man nodded as his name was called. They looked like they could tear Marcus apart with their bare hands, but their expressions were respectful, almost reverent. Hammer stepped forward. "Kid, I've been in this club for 20 years, been in more fights than I can count, and I've never seen anything like what you did. 3 armed men and you just went at them. No backup, no hesitation." "Crazy brave," Tank added. "Or just crazy. Either way, respect." Bones cleared his throat. He was older than the others, maybe 60, with reading glasses perched on his nose. "We wanted to give you something, as a thank you, for Sophie." He handed Marcus a leather vest. It was smaller than the ones the men wore, but clearly made from the same material. The Devil's Hound's logo was embroidered on the back. The snarling hound wreathed in flames. On the front, a single patch. Staff. "It's not a full cut," Stone explained. "You're not a member yet, but it's a mark of respect. When you wear this, people will know you're under our protection, that you're family." Marcus took the vest with shaking hands. It was soft, well-worn, smelling of leather and motorcycle exhaust. He put it on. It fit perfectly. "There's a ceremony," Stone continued, "when someone earns their road name, their nickname. Usually it's voted on by the chapter, but in your case it was unanimous." He paused. "Staff. The kid who fought off kidnappers with a wooden stick. The kid who's got more heart than sense." The men laughed. Not mocking, warm, accepting. Reaper spoke up. He was lean with haunted eyes. "You ever need anything, kid, you come find one of us. You're pack now." They filed out one by one, each man clapping Marcus on the shoulder or ruffling his hair. Stone stayed behind. "You okay? I don't know what I am." "That's fair. This is a lot to take in." Stone sat on the edge of the desk. "You should know we're going after the Diablos, for what they tried to do to Emma. It's going to get ugly." "Good." Stone's eyebrows rose. "Good. They tried to hurt a little girl. They should pay for that." "They will. But I want you to understand what that means. We're not just going to rough them up. We're going to destroy them. Burn their operations to the ground. Make an example." Stone's eyes were hard. "It's not going to be clean or legal or pretty." Marcus met his gaze without flinching. "I don't care. They deserve it." "Maybe. But there's a cost to that kind of violence. It changes you, makes you harder." Stone's voice softened. "I don't want that for you. Not if I can help it." "I'm already hard." Stone studied him for a long moment. "Yeah, I guess you are." The next day, Marcus did something stupid. He went to see the prisoner. He'd overheard Tank and Hammer talking about him, one of the kidnappers being held in the basement. The one Marcus had bitten during the fight. His name was Carlos, and he'd been singing like a canary, giving up everything he knew about Salazar's operation. Marcus found Doc in the medical bay. "I need to ask you something, off the record." Doc looked up from his inventory. "That sounds ominous." "The Diablo I bit during the fight. He's in the basement." "Yeah. Broken arm from where you hit him with the stick, plus a nasty bite wound that got infected. He's been talking. Told us everything." Doc's expression went carefully neutral. "Why? I want to see him." "That's not a good idea." "I don't care if it's a good idea. I need to see him." Marcus paused. "I need to understand why someone would do that. Go after a kid." Doc was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Let me talk to Stone." An hour later, Tank led Marcus down to the basement. The space was cold and utilitarian. No windows. A single chair bolted to the floor. The Diablo sat in that chair, hands zip-tied behind his back. He looked rough, bruised, pale, his arm in a makeshift sling. When he saw Marcus, his eyes went wide. "You, the kid with the stick." Marcus approached slowly. "What's your name?" "Carlos." "Carlos." Marcus stopped a few feet away. "You tried to kidnap a 10-year-old girl." "I was just following orders, man." Carlos's voice was desperate. "Salazar said, I don't care what Salazar said. You made a choice." Carlos looked away. "Yeah, I did. And now I'm going to die for it, right?" Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he asked, Why go after a kid? Leverage." Carlos's voice was flat, defeated. "Salazar thought if we had Stone's daughter, we could force him to back off our territory. Open up new distribution routes. It was supposed to be a clean grab, in and out. No violence. You had a knife. For show. We weren't going to hurt her." "Bull." Marcus's voice was cold. "You pulled that knife on me. You were ready to use it." Carlos flinched. "You attacked us. We defended ourselves. You were kidnapping a child." Marcus felt rage boiling up inside him. "She's 10 years old. She has a unicorn backpack and she likes chocolate ice cream, and she makes peanut butter sandwiches for people she cares about. And you were going to put a bag over her head and throw her in a van." Carlos's face crumpled. "I got kids of my own, man. Daughters. I would never have actually hurt her." "Then you should have thought about that before you grabbed her." Marcus stared at him for another long moment. This man, this coward, trying to justify the unjustifiable. "Where's Salazar now?" "I don't know. He moves around, never stays in one place." "But you know his operations, his safe houses, his routines." "Yeah, and I already told them everything." Carlos's voice was hollow. "They got maps, schedules, the works. I gave them everything. Won't matter, though. I'm still dead." Tank spoke from the doorway. "Kid, we're done here." Marcus turned and walked out. He was halfway up the stairs when he heard Carlos call after him. "Hey, kid. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm about the girl. About all of it." Marcus didn't look back. That night, Emma came to his room. It was late, nearly midnight. She was wearing pajamas with cartoon cats on them, and she looked scared. "Hi." Her voice was small. "Can I come in?" "Sure." She sat on the edge of his bed, pulling her knees up to her chest. "Daddy's going to fight the bad men tomorrow." "Yeah." "Are you scared?" Marcus considered the question. "A little. But your dad's smart. And strong. He'll be okay. He promised he'd come back." Emma's voice cracked. "But adults break promises sometimes." The pain in her voice cut through Marcus like a knife. This kid, this sweet, innocent kid, had already learned that the world was cruel and unfair, just like Lily had learned it, just like Marcus had learned it. He put his arm around her. "Not your dad. He's not going to break this promise." "How do you know?" "Because he has you to come back to. And that's the most important thing in the world." Emma leaned against his shoulder. They sat in silence, listening to the motorcycles being prepared in the parking lot below. Men shouting. Engines revving. The sounds of war. "Marcus, yeah? Will you promise me something? What? Promise you won't leave? Promise you'll still be here when Daddy comes back?" Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. "I promise." She hugged him fiercely. "Thank you. For saving me. For being my friend. For everything." After she left, escorted back to her room by one of the members staying behind to guard the clubhouse, Marcus went to the window. He could see the parking lot below, men checking weapons, strapping on body armor, loading up vehicles. This was it. The night of the operation. Stone had forbidden him from joining the assault, made him promise to stay at the clubhouse where it was safe. But Marcus couldn't stay behind. Not when the people who tried to hurt Emma were out there. Not when he could help. He grabbed his staff and his new leather vest, slipped out of his room and down the back stairs. The guards were focused on the front entrance. The kitchen door was unguarded. On a hook by the door labeled "Emergency Vehicle" was a set of car keys. Marcus took them. He'd only driven a few times before stolen cars, brief joy rides when he needed to get somewhere fast. But he remembered the basics. Start the engine. Put it in drive. Don't crash. The sedan was parked in the back lot. Marcus climbed in, started the engine, and pulled out as quietly as he could. In the rearview mirror, he watched the clubhouse shrink into the distance. He'd made a promise to Emma. But he'd made an older promise to Lily. And some promises couldn't be kept from the sidelines. The industrial district was 40 minutes away. Marcus drove carefully, staying under the speed limit, blending with traffic. His heart hammered in his chest. This was insane. Suicidal. If Stone found out, he'd be furious. But Marcus couldn't stay behind. Not when Dante Salazar was out there. Not when the man who'd tried to take Emma was breathing the same air as everyone else. He was halfway there when he heard the first sirens. Then gunfire. The Devil's Hounds had engaged. Marcus pressed the accelerator. Whatever was happening, he wasn't going to miss it. Marcus parked the sedan 2 blocks from the warehouse district and killed the engine. The night was alive with chaos. Gunfire crackled in the distance. Sirens wailed. Somewhere glass shattered and men screamed. The Devil's Hounds had hit multiple locations simultaneously. Smart strategy: divide the enemy's forces, overwhelm them before they could regroup. Marcus grabbed his staff and slipped out of the car. His heart pounded against his ribs. Every instinct screamed that this was suicide. He was 16 years old, barely healed from stab wounds, walking into a war zone with nothing but a wooden stick. But he kept moving. For Emma. For Lily. For the promise he'd made to himself the night his sister died. The main warehouse was 3 blocks ahead. Marcus could see floodlights, blazing emergency vehicles, figures moving in the shadows. He circled around to the back, staying low, using parked cars and dumpsters for cover. His training with Hammer kicked in. Move smooth. Stay quiet. Don't attract attention. He reached the loading dock at the rear of the building. A single guard stood there, Diablo colors on his vest, nervously shifting his weight from foot to foot. The man kept glancing toward the sounds of battle, clearly wondering if he should run. Marcus didn't give him time to decide. He rushed forward, staff raised, and swept the man's legs out from under him. The guard hit the concrete hard. Marcus followed up with a strike to the solar plexus, knocking the wind out of him. "Where's Salazar?" The man gasped, struggling to breathe. Marcus pressed the staff against his throat. "Where is Salazar? Inside." The words came out choked. "Second floor, back office." Marcus zip-tied the man's hands. He'd taken a handful from the clubhouse supplies and gagged him with his own bandana. Then he slipped inside. The warehouse was chaos. Devil's Hounds everywhere, zip-tying Diablos, smashing equipment, tearing the place apart. Nobody noticed one skinny kid in a leather vest moving through the shadows. They were too busy winning. Marcus found the stairs and climbed to the second floor. His stitches pulled with every step, sending sharp jabs of pain through his side. He ignored it. The hallway was empty. Most of the action was downstairs. One door had light seeping from underneath, the only room still occupied. Marcus tested the handle. Locked. He took a step back and kicked. The door shuddered, but held. He kicked again. Harder. The frame splintered. The door burst inward. And there was Dante Salazar, The man was exactly like his photograph, sharp features, cold eyes, snake tattoo coiling up his neck. He stood behind a desk, shoving cash into a duffel bag. A pistol lay within arm's reach. When he saw Marcus, he actually laughed. "You've got to be kidding me." Salazar's voice dripped with contempt. "The stick kid. You're the one who's been causing all this trouble." Marcus raised his staff. "Yeah, the stick kid. And what exactly do you think you're going to do, kill me?" Salazar gestured at himself. "With that, if I have to." Something shifted in Salazar's expression. Not fear, not yet, but reassessment. "You're the one who took out my guys, when they grabbed the girl. Her name is Emma. I don't care what her name is." Salazar's hand drifted toward the pistol. "She was a means to an end, nothing personal. She's 10 years old. And Stone is a motorcycle club president who's been bleeding my operation dry for months." Salazar's fingers closed around the gun. "Business is business, kid. You'll understand when you're older. I won't get older if you shoot me." "Smart boy." Salazar raised the pistol. "Any last words?" Marcus moved. The gun went off. The bullet passed so close to his head that he felt the air pressure change against his ear. But he was already inside Salazar's guard, already swinging the staff in a tight arc. The oak connected with Salazar's wrist. Bones cracked. The gun clattered to the floor. Salazar threw a punch with his offhand, caught Marcus in the jaw. Stars exploded across his vision. He staggered back, tasted blood. "Little bastard," Salazar snarled. He dove for the gun. Marcus recovered and brought the staff down on Salazar's reaching hand. More bones broke. Salazar screamed a high animal sound. "You tried to take Emma." Marcus's voice was eerily calm. "You sent men to kidnap a little girl. It was just business. Business." Marcus hit him again, this time in the ribs. He heard something crack. Children are off limits. Everyone knows that, even criminals, even monsters. Salazar collapsed against the desk, clutching his broken hand. "You think you're some kind of hero? You think this changes anything?" "I don't care about being a hero. I care about making sure you never hurt another kid again." Marcus raised the staff for another blow, and froze. He could kill this man. Right now. Easily. Salazar was injured, unarmed, defenseless. One more swing to the head. That's all it would take. But something stopped him. Not fear. Not mercy. Something else. If he did this, if he became a killer, he'd be crossing a line he could never uncross. He'd be becoming the thing he hated. The thing that had destroyed Lily. The system had failed his sister. Mr. Henderson had destroyed her. And Marcus had sworn to be different, to protect kids, not become another predator. Killing Salazar wouldn't bring Lily back. It would just make Marcus into something she wouldn't recognize. His hands trembled on the staff. "What are you waiting for?" Salazar's voice was thick with pain. "Do it. Finish it." Marcus didn't move. "You don't have the guts," Salazar laughed, a wet, broken sound. "You're just a kid, a homeless little street rat playing hero. You don't have what it takes to—" The door exploded inward. Stone filled the doorway. Blood splattered across his vest, fury blazing in his eyes. "Marcus, step back!" Marcus lowered the staff. "He's yours." Stone walked forward slowly, deliberately. His boots echoed on the floor like thunder. Salazar's face went pale. "Stone, listen, we can work this out. The girl Emma, she's fine. Nobody got hurt. There's no reason we can't—" "You went after my daughter." Stone's voice was quiet. Terrifying. "You broke the oldest rule. The only rule that matters. It was business, just business. I was trying to—" I don't care what you were trying to do. Stone stopped in front of him. I care about what you did. Please. Salazar's composure cracked. Tears streamed down his face. Please. I have a family. A mother. I'll leave. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Just let me— You should have thought about family before you went after mine. Stone reached down and picked up Marcus's staff. Examined it. The silver reinforcement. The engraved words. The Devil's Hounds logo. You know what this is? He held the staff in front of Salazar's face. This is proof that a 16-year-old kid has more honor than you ever will. More courage. More heart. He handed the staff back to Marcus. Go downstairs. Wait for me in the truck. Stone. Now Marcus. Marcus hesitated. Part of him wanted to stay. Wanted to see justice done. Wanted to watch Salazar pay for what he'd tried to do. But another part of him, the part that still remembered Lily's smile, her dandelion necklaces, her innocent belief that the world could be good, that part knew he didn't need to see this. Some lines once crossed couldn't be uncrossed. He walked toward the door. Kid. Marcus turned. Stone's expression had softened just slightly. You did good tonight. Stupid, but good. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. We're going to have a long conversation about following orders. Marcus nodded and walked out. Behind him, he heard Salazar start to beg. He didn't stay to hear the end. The warehouse was quieter now. The fighting had moved elsewhere, or maybe it was already over. Marcus made his way downstairs through the wreckage of Salazar's operation past Devil's Hounds members, who nodded at him with something like respect. Word had already spread. The kid had gone rogue, confronted Salazar alone, held him until Stone arrived. Crazy brave, or just crazy. Either way, legend. Marcus found Stone's truck parked outside and climbed into the passenger seat. His hands were shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him hollow and exhausted. He'd almost killed a man tonight. He'd wanted to. For Emma. For Lily. For every kid who'd ever been failed by the system by adults who should have protected them. But he hadn't. He didn't know if that made him strong or weak. 20 minutes later, Stone climbed into the driver's seat. His knuckles were bruised and bloody. His face was unreadable. They drove in silence for several miles. Finally, Stone spoke. You disobeyed direct orders. Yes. You put yourself in danger. After everything I said. After everything we talked about. Yes. You could have been killed. I know. More silence. Why? Stone's voice was tight. Why couldn't you just stay at the clubhouse where it was safe? Marcus stared out the window. Because safe wasn't good enough. Because Salazar was out there and I couldn't just sit around waiting for someone else to handle it. That's not your job. You're 16. I'm the guy who saved your daughter. Stone's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Don't pull that card with me, Marcus. I'm grateful, more grateful than you'll ever know, but that doesn't give you the right to throw your life away on a revenge mission. It wasn't revenge. Then what was it? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I had a sister, Lily. She was 8 years old. Stone glanced at him. We were in foster care together, the last placement before I aged out. Marcus's throat tightened. Our foster father, he was a predator. I saw the way he looked at her, the way he found excuses to be alone with her. Jesus. I reported it, called the hotline, begged the caseworker to investigate. Marcus's hands curled into fists. She said they'd look into it, said these things take time. What happened? A week later, I came home and found Lily in the bathtub, empty pill bottle on the floor. 8 years old, and she decided the world was too much. Stone was silent. The system failed her. The adults who were supposed to protect her, they failed her. And I promised myself that night, I swore on her grave that I would never let it happen again, that if I ever saw another kid in danger, I wouldn't wait for someone else to handle it. I wouldn't trust the system. Marcus turned to face Stone. When I saw those men grab Emma, I saw Lily. I saw her in that bathtub. I saw everything I failed to prevent. And I couldn't— His voice cracked. I couldn't let it happen again. So you threw yourself at 3 armed men with a stick? Yeah. And tonight you drove into a war zone alone? Yeah. To confront Salazar? Yeah. Stone pulled the truck to the side of the road and stopped. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring straight ahead. Then he turned to Marcus. I'm sorry about your sister. No kid should have to go through that. She didn't have to. The system just didn't care enough to stop it. The system fails a lot of kids. Stone's voice was heavy. I've seen it. Gang recruitment, drug addiction, kids falling through the cracks because nobody gives a damn. He paused. That's part of why I do what I do. The devil's hounds were not angels. We've done things that would make your hair curl, but we also protect our community, our families, our own. Like Emma. Like Emma. And like you. Stone met his eyes. You're one of us now, Marcus. Whether you want to be or not. And that means I'm responsible for you. That means when I tell you to stay somewhere safe, I expect you to stay there. I can't promise that. I know. Stone almost smiled. You're too stubborn. Too brave. Too much like me when I was your age. He started the truck again. But next time you decide to go rogue, at least give me a heads up, so I can have your back. Deal. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence. When they arrived at the clubhouse, it was in full celebration mode. Music blaring, alcohol flowing, members slapping each other on the back and recounting their victories. The Diablos had been decimated. 4 locations hit simultaneously, their drug operation destroyed, their leadership eliminated. The word spread quickly that Marcus had confronted Salazar alone, that he'd held him until Stone arrived, that the stick kid had gone into the lion's den and walked out without a scratch. Tank was the first to find him. Kid, you crazy son of a bitch! He grabbed Marcus in a bear hug that made his ribs scream. You went after Salazar alone? It seemed like a good idea at the time. It was a terrible idea. Tank released him, grinning. But you pulled it off. That's what matters. Hammer appeared next, shaking his head. I've been training you for 5 days, and you decide to take on a cartel enforcer solo. I had a good teacher. Flattery won't save you from the extra drills I'm adding to your routine. But Hammer was smiling too. Bones pressed a soda into Marcus's hand. Figured you earned this. Reaper raised his beer bottle in salute. To Staff, the craziest kid I've ever met. To Staff, the others echoed. Marcus felt warmth spreading through his chest. Not from the soda, from something else. Belonging, acceptance, family. He'd spent so long alone, so long surviving on the margins, trusting no one, needing no one's. And now, surrounded by these men who'd accepted him as one of their own, he finally understood what he'd been missing. This was what Lily had wanted for him, a place to belong, people who cared about him, a chance to be something more than just a survivor. He wished she could see him now. Around midnight, the celebration started winding down. Members drifted off to their rooms or headed home. The music faded to background noise. Marcus was sitting in a corner, exhausted, but unable to sleep, when Emma appeared. She was in her cat pajamas again, hair mussed from bed. "You're okay?" Her voice was thick with relief. "Daddy said you went after the bad man, that you helped catch him." "Your dad did most of the work. But you were there. You helped." She sat down next to him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Were you scared? Terrified? But you did it anyway." "Yeah. That's what bravery is, right? Being scared but doing the thing anyway." Marcus looked at her. This kid, this sweet, innocent kid who'd seen too much and still believed in heroes. "Yeah," he said softly. "That's exactly what it is." Emma hugged him. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For being my friend. For not leaving. I promised I wouldn't." "I know." She pulled back, smiling. "That's why I knew you'd come back." After she went to bed, Marcus sat alone in the dark, holding his staff. The silver bands gleamed in the moonlight. The engraved words seemed to glow. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important. He thought about Lily, about Emma, about Stone and the Devil's Hounds, and the future that suddenly seemed possible. 6 months ago, he'd been a ghost, a homeless kid with nothing but a wooden stick and a promise to a dead girl. Now he had a home, a family, a purpose, and tomorrow he'd start building the rest of his life. But that was tomorrow. Tonight he just sat in the darkness and let himself feel grateful. For the first time in years, Marcus fell asleep without dreaming of bathtubs and empty pill bottles. 6 months changed everything. Marcus stood in the backyard of Stone's property staff, in hand, working through his morning routine. The oak moved through the air like an extension of his body, smooth, precise, deadly. 50 strikes, 50 blocks, 50 thrusts. His form was unrecognizable from the sloppy, self-taught kid who'd fought behind Chen's restaurant. Hammer had rebuilt him from the ground up. Proper technique. Filipino Kali. Combat flow. Now Marcus moved like water. Like fire. Like something that could hurt you before you even knew it was coming. "Not bad staff." Marcus turned. Hammer stood at the edge of the yard, arms crossed, watching. "You've been spying on me, making sure you're not slacking." Hammer walked closer. "Your footwork's improved, rotation's cleaner. You're actually listening to what I taught you." "I had a good teacher." "Damn right you did." Hammer sat on the porch steps. 6 months ago you were a street kid with more guts than brains. Now look at you." Marcus looked down at himself. He'd put on 20 pounds of muscle since moving into Stone's house. Regular meals, protein shakes, and brutal training sessions had transformed his body. He wasn't big, would never be big, but he was lean, fast, dangerous. "I still feel like that street kid sometimes," Marcus admitted. "That's good. Don't ever forget where you came from." Hammer's expression turned serious. "The day you forget is the day you get soft, and soft people don't survive in this world." "Is that why you joined the club?" "Partly." Hammer stared off into the distance. "I was like you once. Different circumstances, same situation. Nobody. Nothing. Then Stone found me, gave me a purpose, a family. The hounds saved my life." He looked at Marcus. "They'll save yours too, if you let them." The back door opened. Emma burst out, Thor bounding behind her. The German Shepherd had been Stone's idea, a guard dog, and companion rolled into one. Emma had named him after the Norse god of thunder because of how loud his bark was. "Marcus, you promised?" Marcus grinned. Promised what? You said you'd help me with my science project today. It's due Monday, and I haven't even started. I said maybe. You said yes. Emma grabbed his hand and started pulling. Come on, it's about volcanoes. Hammer laughed. Better go staff. Can't keep a lady waiting. Marcus let Emma drag him inside, Thor trotting at their heels. This was his life now. Training in the mornings, helping Emma with homework in the afternoons, dinner with Stone and the family because that's what they were now, a family, in the evenings. It still felt surreal sometimes. 6 months ago, he'd been sleeping in doorways and eating out of dumpsters. Now he had his own room with an actual bed, clean clothes, 3 meals a day, and people who cared about him. The science project took 3 hours. Emma wanted to build a volcano that actually erupted, which meant baking soda vinegar and a lot of mess. By the time they finished, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone, and both of them were covered in fake lava. Dad's going to kill us, Emma said, surveying the damage. I'll clean it up. You'll help me clean it up. I made the mess too. They worked together, scrubbing counters and mopping floors. Thor watched from his bed tail wagging, clearly amused by the whole thing. Marcus? Yeah. Are you going to stay forever? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean, here? With us? Emma's voice was small. Daddy says you're family now, but sometimes people say that, and then they leave anyway. Marcus stopped mopping and looked at her. This kid. This sweet, wonderful kid who'd been through so much and still worried about being abandoned. I'm not going anywhere, he said firmly. Promise, promise. She hugged him, getting fake volcano residue all over his shirt. He didn't care. That evening, Stone called Marcus into his study. The room was filled with motorcycle memorabilia photographs of past members' awards and trophies from charity rides. Stone sat behind his desk, expression unreadable. Close the door. Marcus obeyed, a knot forming in his stomach. Had he done something wrong? Sit. He sat. Stone studied him for a long moment. 6 months. Sir. It's been 6 months since you saved Emma, since you came to live with us. Stone leaned back in his chair. A lot has changed. Yes, sir. You've changed. Put on muscle, improved your skills. Hammer says you're one of the best students he's ever trained. He's a good teacher. He is. But you're a better student. Stone pulled a folder from his desk drawer. I've been getting reports from Hammer, from Doc, from Tank, and the others. They all say the same thing. What's that? That you're ready. Marcus's heart started pounding. Ready for what? Stone opened the folder. Inside were photographs, Marcus training Marcus, helping around the clubhouse, Marcus with Emma. There were also documents, school records showing straight A's, medical reports showing full recovery, training evaluations with high marks across the board. You turn 16 next month, Stone said. That's prospect age, old enough to officially start the process of joining the club. Marcus couldn't breathe. I'm offering you a choice. Stone's voice was measured, careful. You can stay here as family, which you are, regardless of what you decide. Live in this house, finish school, have a normal life. Or, he paused. You can prospect for the Devil's Hounds. Learn the life. Earn your patch. What does prospecting mean? It means work, hard work. You'll be at the bottom of the ladder doing whatever needs doing, cleaning bikes, running errands, proving yourself over and over again. Could take a year, could take 5. Depends on you. And if I make it through, Stone reached into the folder and pulled out a leather vest, full size. The Devil's Hounds logo embroidered on the back, the snarling hound wreathed in flames. You become a brother, full patch member. One of us. Marcus stared at the vest. 6 months ago, he'd been nobody, a throwaway kid the world had forgotten. Now the president of a motorcycle club was offering him a future. What about school? You keep going. Education matters. I want you to graduate, maybe even go to college if that's what you want. Being a hound doesn't mean being stupid. And Emma, Stone's expression softened. She loves you. Thinks of you as a big brother. That doesn't change no matter what you decide. Marcus looked at the vest, then at Stone, then back at the vest. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. Stone put the vest back in the folder. This is a big decision. Life-changing. I don't want you to make it lightly. Thank you for everything. For taking me in, for giving me a chance, for don't thank me. Stone's voice was gruff but warm. You earned this, every bit of it. The day you threw yourself at 3 armed men to save my daughter, you earned a place in this family. Everything since then has just been confirmation. Marcus left the study with his head spinning. He went to his room and sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The staff leaned against the wall. His original staff, the one that had been repaired with silver wire. Stone had given him a new one for training, but this one was special. This one had saved Emma's life. A knock at the door. Come in. Emma poked her head in. You okay? You look weird. Your dad just offered me something big. The prospect thing. She came in and sat beside him. He told me he was going to. I asked if I could be there, but he said it was men's business. She rolled her eyes. Like I'm not part of this family, too. You knew. Everyone knew. The guys have been talking about it for weeks. Emma bumped his shoulder with hers. So what did you say? I said I'd think about it. What's there to think about? Marcus looked at her. It's a big commitment. Once I start down that road, there's no turning back. Is that bad? I don't know. Maybe. The life your dad leads, it's dangerous. There are enemies. Rivals. People who want to hurt him and everyone he cares about. Like the Diablos. Like the Diablos. Marcus sighed. If I become a hound, I become a target too, and anyone close to me becomes a target. You're already close to us. You already saved me once. Emma took his hand. Marcus, you're my brother. Not by blood, but by choice. And I want you to stay. Forever. Whatever that means. Even if it's dangerous. Life is dangerous. Bad things happen even when you're careful. Her voice was older than her years. But having family, having people who love you and protect you, that makes the danger worth it. Marcus squeezed her hand. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention. He laughed despite himself. After she left, Marcus lay awake for hours thinking. About Lily. About the promise he'd made on her grave. About Emma and the family he'd found in the most unlikely place. About the future, stretching out before him, uncertain, dangerous, but full of possibility. By the time the sun came up, he'd made his decision. He found Stone in the kitchen drinking coffee and reading the morning news. I want to prospect. Stone looked up. You sure? Yes, sir. I want to earn my patch. I want to be a hound. Stone set down his coffee and stood. He walked to Marcus and placed both hands on his shoulders. Then welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather vest, smaller than the full patch, black with white letters on the back. Prospect. You'll wear this until you earn your patch. It marks you as one of us, but not yet fully. You'll have to prove yourself, over and over again. There'll be days you hate it, days you want to quit. But if you stick with it, if you show us what you're made of, I'll be a brother. You'll be a brother. Stone handed him the vest. Put it on. Marcus slipped the vest over his shoulders. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for him. "There's one more thing." Stone reached into his other pocket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully. Marcus's breath caught. It was his original staff, the one that had been repaired after the fight, but transformed. The silver bindings had been polished until they gleamed. New engravings covered the length scenes from the rescue, Emma's silhouette, the Devil's Hound's logo. And at the base, a small metal plate, staff, Devil's Hound's MC, Prospect. "This is yours," Stone said. "Your weapon, your symbol, your proof of what you did and who you're becoming." Marcus took the staff with trembling hands. It was heavier than he remembered, but it felt right. Balanced. Powerful. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just earn it." Stone's eyes were bright. "Make us proud, son." Son. The word hit Marcus like a physical force. He'd never had a father, not a real one. His biological dad had disappeared before he was born. His foster fathers had ranged from indifferent to monstrous, but Stone was looking at him like a father looks at a son. With pride. With hope. With love. Marcus blinked back tears. "I will, I promise." The next few weeks were the hardest of Marcus's life. Prospecting wasn't glamorous. It was grunt work. Cleaning bikes until they sparkled. Running errands at all hours. Being the first to arrive and the last to leave. Taking orders without complaint, even when they seemed pointless. "Get me a beer, Prospect." "Yes, sir." "These bikes aren't going to wash themselves, Prospect." "On it." "Someone needs to do a supply run." "Guess who?" "I'll grab the keys." The full patch members tested him constantly, made him do push-ups for minor mistakes, sent him on wild goose chases for items that didn't exist, questioned his commitment, his loyalty, his courage. But Marcus never complained, never quit. Never gave them a reason to doubt him. Because every time it got hard, he remembered why he was doing this. For Lily. For Emma. For the family he'd found, and the family he'd lost. Hammer intensified his training. 3 hours every morning instead of 1. New techniques, new weapons, new scenarios. "A prospect needs to be ready for anything," Hammer explained. "You might have to protect a brother in a fight. You might have to stand guard at an event. You might have to put your body between a bullet and your president." "Has that ever happened?" "Twice." Hammer showed him a scar on his shoulder. "This one was meant for Stone. I got in the way." "Did it hurt?" "Like hell. But Stone's alive, so it was worth it." Marcus absorbed everything. The skills, the culture, the unwritten rules of the Brotherhood. He learned that loyalty was everything. That you never ratted, never turned on a brother, never put yourself above the club. He learned that respect was earned, not given. That the patch on your back meant nothing if your actions didn't back it up. He learned that family, real family, wasn't about blood. It was about choice. About showing up day after day, even when it was hard. 3 months into his prospecting, the club threw a charity event. A motorcycle ride to raise money for foster kids. Kids like Marcus had been kids falling through the cracks of a broken system. Stone asked Marcus to speak. "Me, why? Because you know what these kids are going through. You lived it." Stone handed him a microphone. "Tell them your story. Let them know there's hope." Marcus had never spoken in public before. Never talked about Lily, about the streets, about any of it. The idea terrified him. But he took the microphone anyway. He stood in front of 200 people. Bikers, families, community members, and he told his story. About Lily. About the system that failed her. About surviving on the streets with nothing but a wooden stick and a promise. About the day he saved Emma. About finding the devil's hounds. About learning what family really meant. I spent years thinking I was alone, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Thinking nobody cared. Thinking I didn't matter, but I was wrong. Everyone matters. Every kid in foster care, every kid on the streets, every kid who's been told they're worthless, they matter. And they deserve people who will fight for them. He raised his staff. This is what I fought with. A piece of wood. But it wasn't the wood that saved that little girl. It was the decision to act. The refusal to look away. Anyone can make that decision. Anyone can choose to be a hero. When he finished, the crowd was silent. Then Stone started clapping. Then Hammer. Then Tank. Then everyone. Marcus stood there overwhelmed as 200 people gave him a standing ovation. Later, after the event, Stone found him sitting alone. That took guts. I almost threw up, Stone laughed. Most people would have, but you did it anyway. That's what matters. He sat beside Marcus. The club raised $50,000 today, most of it because of your speech. Seriously, people opened their wallets after hearing your story. They wanted to help kids like you. Stone put a hand on his shoulder. You made a difference today, Marcus. A real difference. Marcus thought about the foster kids that money would help. About the meals they'd eat, the beds they'd sleep in, the small kindnesses that might keep them from ending up like Lily. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. But you do what you can and then you do more. That's how you change the world, one kid at a time, one day at a time. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood now why Stone had asked him to speak. It wasn't just about raising money. It was about showing Marcus what he could become. Not just a fighter, not just a prospect, a leader, someone who could inspire others, who could make a difference, someone Lily would have been proud of. That night, Marcus visited Lily's grave for the first time since he'd run away. He'd been avoiding it, afraid of the memories, afraid of the guilt. But he needed to tell her. He knelt in the grass staff across his lap and talked to the headstone. Hey, Lily, it's me. I'm sorry I haven't visited. I've been busy becoming someone better, someone who can protect kids like you. The wind rustled the leaves overhead. I found a family, a real one. They're not perfect, they do things I'm not always sure about, but they love me. They accept me. They gave me a home. He traced the letters of her name carved in stone. I think about you every day. Every time I pick up this staff, I remember why I carry it. Every time I see Emma smile, I see you. Every time I protect someone, I'm protecting you too. But tears streamed down his face. I'm going to keep my promise, Lily. I'm going to make sure no other kid goes through what you went through, whatever it takes, however long it takes. He stood, wiped his eyes, and squared his shoulders. I love you, little sister. Always. He walked away from the grave, but for the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. Lily was gone. Nothing would bring her back. But Marcus could honor her memory, could fight for kids who were still alive, still struggling, still hoping. And that's exactly what he planned to do. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the center of church. Every full-patch member of the Devil's Hounds sat around the long table. Stone at the head, Hammer to his right, Tankbone's Reaper Ghost, Diesel Chains. Smoke, all of them watching Marcus with expressions he couldn't quite read. His prospect vest felt heavier than usual. You've been with us for a year, Stone said. 12 months of proving yourself. 12 months of grunt work training sacrifice. Yes, sir. We've tested you, pushed you, made you do things no 17-year-old should have to do. Stone's voice was formal, ceremonial. And you never complained. Never quit. Never gave us a single reason to doubt your commitment. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. The vote was unanimous. Stone stood. Every man in this room believes you've earned your place among us. Hammer reached under the table and pulled out a leather vest. Full size. Full patch. The Devil's Hound's logo blazing on the back. The snarling hound wreathed in flames. "Take off your prospect cut," Stone ordered. Marcus's hands trembled as he removed the vest that had defined him for the past year. He folded it carefully and set it on the table. Stone walked around and stood in front of him. "Marcus, Staff, you came to us as a homeless kid with nothing but a wooden stick and more courage than sense. You saved my daughter's life. You became part of our family. And now," he held up the full patch vest, "now you become our brother." Stone helped him into the vest. The leather settled on Marcus's shoulders like armor, like destiny. "Turn around." Marcus turned to face the table. Every man was on his feet. "Brothers," Stone said, "I present to you our newest full-patch member. Staff. Devil's Hound." The room erupted. Tank reached him first, crushing him in a bear hug. "Welcome to the family, brother." Hammer was next, gripping his shoulders with tears in his eyes. "I knew you'd make it. Knew it from the first day." Reaper, Ghost, Diesel, Chains, Smoke, Bones. One by one they embraced him, welcomed him, made him feel like he belonged. Because he did belong. This was his family now. Stone waited until the others had finished, then pulled Marcus into a hug of his own. "I'm proud of you, son. More proud than you'll ever know. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me. You did the work. You earned this." Stone pulled back, hands on Marcus's shoulders. "Your sister would be proud, too." Marcus's throat tightened. "I hope so. I know so." The celebration lasted well into the night. Food, drinks, music, laughter. Marcus sat in the middle of it all, surrounded by his brothers, wearing his patch, feeling like he'd finally arrived somewhere. But the best moment came later. Emma found him on the porch, sitting alone with his staff across his lap. "You did it." She sat beside him, grinning. "You're a real hound now." "Apparently. How does it feel?" Marcus considered the question. "Terrifying, amazing. Like everything I've been working toward finally came together. You deserve it." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're the best big brother anyone could ask for." "I'm your only big brother." "Details," she laughed. "But you're still the best." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. "Marcus, yeah, thank you. For saving me that day. For staying. For becoming part of our family." Her voice was thick with emotion. "I can't imagine my life without you in it." Marcus put his arm around her. "I can't imagine mine without you either, Em. You and your dad, you saved me just as much as I saved you." "I guess we saved each other." "Yeah, I guess we did." The next morning, Stone called Marcus into his study. "Now that you're full patch, there are things you need to know. Responsibilities you'll have." "I'm ready." "I know you are." Stone handed him a folder. "But first, I have something for you." Marcus opened the folder. Inside were legal documents. Adoption papers. His breath caught. "I've been working with our lawyers for months," Stone said. "If you want, and only if you want, I'd like to make it official. I'd like to adopt you. Make you my son. Not just in name, but in law." Marcus stared at the papers. His hands shook. You don't have to decide now. I know it's a lot. But I want you to know that you're not just a club member to me. You're not just the kid who saved my daughter. You're family. Real family. And I want the world to know it. Why? Marcus's voice cracked. Why would you do this for me? Because you're worth it. Because you've earned it. Because, Stone's voice caught. Because I love you, Marcus. Like a son. And I want to give you something you've never had. A father who will never let you down. Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All his life he'd been alone. Unwanted. Thrown away by a system that didn't care. And now this man, this gruff, terrifying, wonderful man was offering him something he'd never dared to hope for. A real father. A real family. A real home. Yes. The word came out as a whisper. Yes. I want that. I want to be your son. Stone's face broke into a smile. The first real smile Marcus had ever seen from him. Then let's make it official. The adoption was finalized 2 weeks later. Marcus stood in the courthouse wearing his nicest clothes flanked by Stone and Emma. The judge asked him a series of questions. Did he understand what adoption meant? Did he consent to being adopted by Victor Reyes? Did he accept all the rights and responsibilities that came with it? I do, Marcus said each time. The judge signed the papers, stamped them, made it official. Congratulations, she said, smiling. You're now legally Marcus Reyes. Emma tackled him with a hug. You're my brother. For real. Stone shook his hand formally, then pulled him into an embrace. Welcome to the family son, officially. That night they celebrated at the clubhouse. Full Patch members raised their glasses to Marcus not just as a brother, but as Stone's son, the heir to the Devil's Hound's legacy. To staff, Tank roared. The craziest, bravest, most stubborn kid any of us have ever met. To staff, the others echoed. Marcus stood in the center of the room, overwhelmed by emotion. 1 year ago, he'd been sleeping in doorways and fighting for scraps. Now he had a father, a sister, a brotherhood, a future. And it had all started with a wooden stick and a refusal to look away. 3 months after the adoption trouble came. Marcus was at school when his phone buzzed. A text from Tank. Clubhouse, now. Emergency. He was out the door before the teacher could stop him. The clubhouse was chaos when he arrived. Members rushing around phones, ringing, voices raised. Something bad had happened. He found Stone in church, surrounded by the core leadership. What's going on? Stone's face was grim. Remember the Diablos, the ones we took down last year, Salazar's crew. What was left of them joined up with another gang, the Crimson Skulls. Bigger, meaner, and they want revenge. Marcus's blood ran cold. Revenge for what? For destroying their operation, for killing Salazar, for humiliating them. Stone slammed his fist on the table. They hit one of our supply runs this morning, killed 2 prospects, sent us a message. What kind of message? Hammer tossed something on the table. A photograph. Marcus picked it up. His hands went numb. It was a picture of Emma's school, her classroom window circled in red marker, and written across the bottom, "We know where your family is." They're threatening Emma. Marcus's voice was barely controlled. They're threatening my sister. They're threatening all of us, Stone said. But yes, Emma especially. They know she's my weakness. Know I'll do anything to protect her. What do? We go to war. Stone's eyes were cold, hard, deadly. We find out where they are, and we end this. Permanently. The next 2 weeks were the most intense of Marcus's life. The club went on high alert. Armed guards at Stone's property around the clock. Emma pulled from school, tutored at home. No one went anywhere alone. Marcus barely slept. He trained obsessively, pushing himself harder than ever. If the skulls came for his family, he would be ready. Hammer found him at 3 a.m, practicing in the backyard. "You need to rest, brother." "I can't. Not while they're out there." "Burning yourself out won't help Emma. Won't help anyone." Hammer took the staff from his hands. "The club is handling this. We have intel. We have a plan. When the time comes, we'll strike." "I want to be there." "You will be." Hammer's expression was serious. "Stone already approved it. You're on the assault team." Marcus felt something shift inside him. Relief, determination, fear. When 3 days were hitting their main base, taking out their leadership, ending this once and for all. 3 days felt like 3 years. Marcus spent every moment preparing, checking his gear, reviewing plans, making sure Emma knew he loved her. "You're scaring me," Emma said the night before the operation. "You're acting like you might not come back." "I'm coming back, I promise." "You said promises matter." "They do. And I'm keeping this one." He hugged her tight. "No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You and your dad gave me a life, a purpose, a reason to fight. Then fight." Emma's voice was fierce despite her tears. "Fight and come home. That's an order." "Yes, ma'am." The assault began at midnight. 50 Devil's Hounds fully armed hitting the Crimson Skull's headquarters from 3 directions. Marcus rode with Stone's team staff secured to his back, heart pounding with adrenaline. They hit the gate hard. Guards went down. Alarms blared. Chaos erupted. Marcus moved through the compound like a shadow. Everything Hammer had taught him, every technique, every instinct, it all came together in those crucial minutes. A skull came at him with a knife. Marcus disarmed him in 3 moves, left him unconscious on the ground. 2 more rushed him together. He took them both down, staff spinning in his hands like an extension of his will. "Staff on your left." Tank's warning came just in time. Marcus ducked, felt the bullet pass over his head, spun, and struck the shooter in the temple. The man crumpled. "Thanks, brother. Watch your back, kid." They pushed deeper into the compound. Gunfire echoed all around. Shouts, screams, the sounds of war. Marcus found himself separated from the group in a corridor he didn't recognize. He moved carefully, staff raised, every sense alert. A door burst open. A massive man charged out, at least 6'5", 300 pounds of muscle and rage. The leader of the Crimson Skulls. Marcus had seen his picture in the intelligence briefings. Victor Koss, former mercenary. Killed dozens of men with his bare hands. And he was coming straight for Marcus. "You're the stick, kid." Victor's voice was deep amused. "The one who took out Salazar. They made you a full patch. A child. I'm not a child. You're about to be a corpse." Victor charged. Marcus had never fought anyone this big. Victor was faster than he looked, stronger than should have been possible. His fists were like sledgehammers, and he shrugged off Marcus's staff strikes like they were nothing. They traded blows across the corridor. Marcus ducked, dodged, tried to find an opening. Victor kept coming, relentless, unstoppable. A massive fist caught Marcus in the ribs. He heard something crack. Pain exploded through his torso. He staggered back, gasping. Pathetic. Victor grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off his feet. "This is the kid who destroyed the Diablos. This is the legendary staff." Marcus couldn't breathe. Black spots danced across his vision. "I'm going to enjoy killing you. Then I'm going to find your little sister. And I'm going to—" Something snapped inside Marcus. Not physical, something deeper. primal. He thought of Lily, of Emma, of every child who'd ever been threatened by monsters like this, and he refused to die. With the last of his strength, he swung the staff upward. The silver-reinforced tip caught Victor under the chin with devastating force. Victor's grip loosened. Marcus dropped to the ground, gasping for air, and didn't stop moving. He swept Victor's legs out from under him. The giant crashed down. Marcus was on top of him instantly, staff pressed across his throat. "You want to threaten my sister?" Marcus's voice was barely human. "You want to threaten my family?" Victor struggled, but Marcus had leverage now. Position. And rage. "I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Salazar. The same thing I'll tell anyone who ever tries to hurt the people I love." Marcus leaned in close. "You picked the wrong girl." He pressed harder on the staff. Victor's face turned purple. "Staff, stand down," Stone's voice cut through the red haze. Marcus looked up. His father stood in the doorway, gun in hand, flanked by tank and hammer. "He's finished," Stone said. "Let the authorities handle him." "He threatened Emma." "I know. But if you kill him like this, you become him. Is that what you want?" Marcus looked down at Victor's purple face, at the fear in his eyes. One more push, and it would be over. Justice served. Vengeance complete. But Stone was right. This wasn't justice. This was murder. And Marcus refused to cross that line. He pulled back. Victor gasped for air, coughing and sputtering. Tank and hammer moved in, zip-tying the gang leader's hands. "We got him, brother. It's over." Stone helped Marcus to his feet. "You okay?" "Cracked ribs, I think. Nothing Doc can't fix." And in here, Stone tapped Marcus's chest over his heart. Marcus considered the question. "I almost killed him." "But you didn't. Because you stopped me. I reminded you. You stopped yourself." Stone's eyes were proud. "That's the difference between us and them, son. We have a code. We have lines we don't cross. Even when we want to. Even when they deserve it." Marcus nodded slowly. His hands were still shaking, but the rage was fading, replaced by something calmer, clearer. "Let's go home," Stone said. "Emma's waiting." They drove back to the compound in silence. The operation had been a success. The Crimson Skulls were finished leadership, captured operations, destroyed survivors scattering. The threat to the Devil's Hounds and their families was over. But Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the choice he'd made, the line he'd almost crossed. When they arrived home, Emma was waiting on the porch. She ran to Marcus and threw her arms around him, not caring about his cracked ribs or the blood on his clothes. "You came back. I promised I would. You always keep your promises." She pulled back, looking at him with those steel-gray eyes, her father's eyes. "You're a hero, Marcus. You know that, right? A real hero." "I'm not a hero, Em. I'm just—" "You're a hero," she insisted. "You saved me. You saved our family. You fight for people who can't fight for themselves. That's what heroes do." Marcus looked at his little sister, at this fierce, wonderful girl who'd become the center of his world. Maybe she was right. Maybe being a hero wasn't about being perfect. It was about making choices, about standing up when others sat down, about protecting the innocent no matter the cost. "Okay," he said finally. "Maybe I'm a hero, but only because I have something worth fighting for." That night, Marcus stood alone on the porch, his staff in his hands. The compound was quiet. The family was safe. The threat was gone. He looked up at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought him here. 2 years ago, he'd been a homeless kid with nothing. A ghost, a throwaway. The system had failed him, and killed his sister, and he'd been left to survive on the streets with nothing but rage and grief. Then he'd seen 3 men trying to kidnap a little girl, and he'd made a choice. That choice had changed everything. It had given him a family, a father who loved him, a sister who needed him, brothers who would die for him. It had given him purpose, a reason to wake up every morning, a cause worth fighting for. It had given him something he'd never had before. Hope. The door opened behind him. Stone stepped out, 2 beers in his hands. Can't sleep. Too much on my mind. Stone handed him a beer and sat beside him. You did good tonight. Handled Victor like a pro. I almost killed him. But you didn't. That's what matters. Stone took a long drink. I've been doing this a long time, Marcus. Seen a lot of young men come through the club. Most of them burn out or break. The violence gets to them. The choices. The weight of it all. How do you handle it? I remember why I do it. Protect the family. Serve the brotherhood. Make the world a little safer for kids like you and Emma. Stone looked at him. You've got that same fire in you. That same purpose. It's going to take you far. What if it takes me somewhere dark? Then you lean on your brothers. Let them pull you back. Stone put a hand on his shoulder. You're not alone anymore, son. You never have to be alone again. Marcus felt the truth of those words settle into his bones. He wasn't alone. He had a family, a brotherhood, a legacy. And he had a staff, a simple piece of wood that had become a symbol of everything he believed in. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important. Marcus raised his beer. To family. Stone clinked his bottle against Marcus's. To family. They sat together in the darkness, father and son, watching the stars. 2 years ago, Marcus had been nobody. Now he was staff. Devil's hound, son of stone. Brother. Protector. Legend. The street kid with nothing had found everything. And this was only the beginning. Because somewhere out there, other kids were falling through the cracks. Other Lilies were crying for help. Other Emmas needed someone to stand between them and the monsters. Marcus would find them. He would protect them. He would be the hero his sister had needed and never gotten. That was his promise. His purpose. His destiny. The boy with the stick had become a man with a mission. And nothing would ever stop him.